All right, well, welcome everybody. We're happy to be here. We are talking about Miami as a capital of venture, the capital of tech, exactly. I see some locals in the crowd. Hopefully there's some folks who are less familiar with our ecosystem here, and we're looking forward to a great conversation. So my name is Natalia Martinez Kalinina. I've lived in Miami for about 10 years. I've definitely seen a lot of growth over that decade in the entrepreneurial ecosystem and otherwise, so I'm very excited to be moderating this discussion. I'm going to kick us off by letting our panelists introduce themselves. I feel like people always do a better job of that than what I managed to glean from the internet. Even some of these folks I know pretty well. So I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. Gianni, let's kick off.
Hi, my name is Gianni. I'm the co-founder of Miami NFT Week, born and raised in Miami, and very happy to be here in the Smart Cities Expo.
Hello, everyone. My name is Erick Gavin. I'm Executive Director for Venture Miami, office within the city of Miami, led by Mayor Francis Suarez, and I'm happy to be here.
Hi, my name is Matt Haggman. I lead an initiative called Opportunity Miami that's all focused on sort of where do we go next as communities. We think about the next 5, 10, 20 years. Before that, I was at a place called Knight Foundation, where launched this program with this crazy idea of that Miami could be a tech community. And I guess we'll talk a little bit about that. And before that was a reporter at the Miami Herald, where I think I might have covered this guy right here. I think so. And Teach for America, I think. City year. Major faux pas.
Major faux pas, man.
Sorry. Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? Can we get a little bit more energy? I mean, come on. Wait, who's from Miami here? Who's from Miami? Who's not from Miami that's here? Have you had some cafecito yet?
Cafecito.
Okay, because if you have a little bit of Cuban coffee, I guarantee you can see straight into the 22nd century. So, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, please meet me after this session. My name is Saif Ishoof, and I proudly serve as the founder of Lab 22C. I like to say I was born in the Caribbean, made in the 305. I'm a proud immigrant. And I played a number of different roles in our community over the last 25 years as a founder, social impact leader, higher ed leader, and having the opportunity to help support Mayor Suarez in the creation of Venture Miami. And I'm so glad to be able to share this space and community with Erick and my friends Gianni, Matt, and Natalia, and ready for the conversation.
Awesome. Well, Matt, I'm going to hand over to you to kick us off with a little bit of historical context, because I feel like you're the better person to do that amongst us. So obviously the changes of the last couple of years, demographically, economically, have landed Miami in the headlines nationally, if not globally, around this kind of future city that we're becoming. But for those of us who've been here, and especially those of us who've been here for a long time, those movements have been incremental. So we're still a young city, we're a young entrepreneurial ecosystem. Walk us a little bit through the context of what you observed over the last decade and how we got here.
Sure, absolutely. And by the way, I hope we're not the last panel between, I hope we're not the ones between you and happy hour. So we'll try to get, we might be. So yes, Miami has been this place in its short history that has been able to make these pivots, whether it's around building the art and cultural life of Miami, where it's building really what is now a world-class system of higher education. The biggest college, campus-based college in the country is right here in Miami. The 5th biggest public research university in the country is here in Miami. And Miami, of course, has become uniquely international. We're in a community right now, 54% of residents in Miami-Dade County, the biggest county in Florida, were born outside the US, right? So about 10 years ago, we actually thought about what's next? What's that next thing? And could see a trend that really felt inevitable, that while there are primary centers of innovation in the world, Silicon Valley obviously being exhibit A of that talent and funding would become much more mobile going forward. And while primary centers of innovation wouldn't go away, new places would emerge. And the feeling is that Miami, this place that's developing these cool urban neighborhoods, so international, so culturally alive, could be that place where we'd be among those leaders of those next new emerging startup communities. So it was actually 10 years ago when I was at Knight Foundation, we launched a program focused on building a tech ecosystem in Miami and funding efforts like the launch of Emerge Americas or bringing Endeavor to Miami or bringing our 500 startups to the Idea Center or the Women Innovating Now Lab and on and on and on, Miami Angels. And all of that was sort of a way to plant the seeds and prepare for our moment. And I think in so many ways, COVID was that moment, the moment, the great reevaluation, right? Where so many of us were able to stop and think anew about where do we want to work, who do we want to spend time with, where do we want to live. And for so many people, where they had this reopened mind about what's possible and where they could be, they found Miami. And of course, it was the mayor, Mayor Suarez, who leaned in. How can I help? And captured that energy. And we've seen this moment where so many people have suddenly said, I'm going to plant a flag and make Miami my own, which is part of what has made Miami through its short life of a little more than a century. People coming here through the years and making Miami as they think it should be, making it their own community. That's from the very founding of Miami. And we've now, when we had a whole wave coming over from the Bahamas, whole waves coming from Cuba and Venezuela, waves coming from Eastern Europe. And now we had waves coming from San Francisco and New York. And so it has culminated in this moment where now for all of us, where Miami is, I think we would all agree, on the map in such a big and important way as the tech community is a center of innovation in its own right. Now it's really on us for this next question of where do we go next?
Thank you for that context. Saif, I'm going to hand over to you. You've been on, I would say, the front line of a lot of different topics in Miami. Education, higher ed, entrepreneurship, and a bunch of other things, kind of through multiple involvements and different hats that you've worn. You are now kind of fully committed and investing in this next chapter of Miami as an innovation hub, as an innovation capital, regionally and globally. How did you get there, and kind of what has inspired you? What's your perspective in terms of what most stands out to you around this moment that we're living and how we move forward?
It's a great question, and I want to give some additional historical perspective, which is that I was a founder 23 years ago here in Miami. And the reality of building and creating, at that time there was the .com movement in LATAM, and you started to have a lot of companies that were basically building the early generation of internet companies in Latin America. Some of you might remember a really great company called Yupi. Yupi was actually bought by Microsoft Network. And so I think what we're witnessing in Miami, which was accelerated in the last decade, and then really even more so with rocket fuel with the mayor in December 4th, 2020, I think what we're witnessing is a phenomenon not unlike when somebody ran into Pablo Picasso in a cafe once and they asked him for a piece of art, and Picasso just did what looked like a squiggle, and the person responded, they said to Picasso, they said, well, that just took you 10 seconds to make it. And his response is, no, it took me 30 years. And I think the reality of what we're witnessing in this ecosystem, we think about companies like Alienware, which Gianni can obviously sound in on, which was bought by Dell, that we've always been a place of doers, dreamers, builders. Oftentimes that entrepreneurial energy, it manifested itself in the folks who had ventanitas or selling Haitian pâtés. But then their children and grandchildren, because of the extraordinary talent mecca that we sit on, were able to activate against opportunities. And we became a net talent exporter in a lot of ways because a lot of those job opportunities weren't here. The compounding that we've seen in the last 10, 20 years, and then accelerated as a function of the forces of the pandemic, really ushered in the ability for when founders landed here from New York, from the Bay Area, and from other markets, they realized that at the end of the day, in an ocean of liquidity, it's talent that's the transformational driver. And so what excites me about this next chapter is that we're seeing founders of diverse backgrounds, diverse senses of belonging that are really writing the next chapter of what's going on in this community. And we're seeing on the cap table investors who are women, investors who are folks of color, investors who are from the LGBTQIA plus community. And I think that people have said to us, I know all of us, they've said, well, is tech going to change Miami? And I chuckle and I said, bro, Miami is going to change tech.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll clap for that. Thank you. I echo that. All right, Erick, off to you next.
Okay.
So we all know the tweet heard around the world, right?
Yes.
How can I help?
Of course.
We've all, there's been jokes. People love it. People hate it. We're all, generally,
It's a
most
meme.
luckily we love it.
It's
It's
a
a meme.
meme now.
Exactly. It's
Yes.
become definitely a meme. What has happened since? Kind of how has the city stepped up? What have you observed? What are the kind of areas of focus that you're looking forward to over the, that have happened over the last year and that you're looking forward to in 2023?
So I think the most interesting thing is not just how the city itself as a municipality stepped up, but how the community as a whole stepped up in a moment to really make that moment much more than a moment, a movement, right? So, I mean, Saif has echoed this constantly. Matt has echoed this constantly. Gianni, I know he will echo this. It's becoming much, much more of a, how do we make this moment really special to, how do we take this moment and make it something that makes the city consistently grow as a global city, not just as a national city. And I've been here for 8 years. I'm one of those people who moved to Miami because I thought that it was cool to move to Miami before a lot of these things happened. And, both of their historical accounts, I saw that incremental change. I was that person in the back of the room watching tech constantly be a point of conversation, but in not being the focus of what Miami actually can become. And I was able to see in a matter of months that drastically change into tech being the motivating, innovating factor of what the city actually could start to produce. So now that we're in this moment and we're trying to make it into a movement, the city steps up in quite a few different ways. I think the main way that I want everybody to walk away with is we are a facilitator. So we make sure that the resources that exist within the city, from community members to entrepreneurs to funders, wherever you come in your walk of life, we want to facilitate your growth within the city of Miami. And so we're working with our county partners. We're working with not only Miami-Dade, but Broward, other places to make South Florida a stronger region, because that is the next step that we need to start taking. Moving from just the city of Miami being a core focus of everything that is innovation to unlocking the innovation that exists within South Florida as a region. And as we start to talk more about that, we'll start to see other industries pop up, because Miami has yet to stick its stake in the ground on exactly what it's going to be in terms of a particular industry. We're primed to do that now. We have, and Matt and I were just talking backstage about what environmental technology looks like within the city of Miami. What does health tech look in the city of Miami when we've had a lot of health tech companies, startup companies, come out of South Florida and be very, very successful? So as we start to move into this next section of what Miami is going to look like in terms of growth, it's going to be this collaboration that happens across county borders, and it's going to be us continuing to facilitate resources that exist in the ecosystem already, but maybe is not fully accessible to everyone at this point in time.
Thank you. And Gianni, closing our first lap around the room here, or on the stage here with you, last but not least. You're Miami born and raised. Tell us a little bit about your journey, and tell us how did Miami become this capital of crypto, capital of NFTs?
I'd say that I'm like a product of all these people here, because when I got out of high school in Miami, it was, and college, it was the first .com boom. And I started working immediately, but one job ended in 3 months. The next job ended in another 3 months, but then I went to work for Alienware, and that was a huge success story. But it's always kind of been desolate with the technology, and my curiosity always trying to pushing into those different things. There wasn't really a conduit for me to participate, but I was always interested in those things. And I think over time, everybody in Miami, and I think it's the immigrant story, that we're all kind of here to help each other, and we're always like reaching out to figure that out. And I think it culminated during the How Can I Help thing with Venture Miami, that Saif gives me a call, and he knows that since 2014 I was like running the Bitcoin meetups, with 10 people. There was not many people. There was not much interest. The North American Bitcoin Conference happened here in Miami. Ethereum was announced here in Miami. But not many people know these things. But he remembered, right? And so he called me and asked for some help, and other people started helping. And I think that's what I think was the catalyst for more, because the city was interested in its citizens having a voice and communicating. And like I said, I'm a product of that. I had an idea. It was called Miami NFT Week, and I brought it to the city, and they completely embraced it. They introduced me to two partners, and that was my answer to many conferences and events and things that come to Miami, but then leave, and they don't really. There's not a bias to the Miami people. There's not a bias for startups. You know, they may put one person, but there's not that idea. And also the faces within the crowd between BTC 21, 22, and all the other events, they're not the faces of us. And so that was kind of like what I wanted to do, and we were very successful with the support of everybody in Miami. You know, we had 4,000 people show up. We had 250 speakers. This is a first-year event. It wouldn't have been able to have happened without the support of everybody involved. And like I was told to remind everybody, we are going to do it again in March 31st, April 1st and 2nd, because it was so successful, and we want to give more opportunity for people from Miami to participate in the blockchain experience that's happening in Miami. Didn't talk too much about blockchain, but sorry.
It's okay. You still answer the question.
Yeah.
So the last couple of, especially the last 2 years, the headlines have felt, it's felt like a tide of headlines, right? So a fund moves to Miami or opens an office here. Funders are coming from different parts of the country. Founders are coming from different parts of the country. People are relocating, and so our talent pool has also changed. When you look back over the last, let's not make it too long, but when you look back over the last 6 months, what stands out to you as a moment where you thought, that's a leading indicator? This is a direction we're going in. And that's for anyone on the panel.
Yeah, I'll take a stab first, then you guys can jump on. I don't know. I mean, obviously, the "How can I help" moment was this iconic moment. But after that, honestly, it felt like there were many moments. It didn't feel like there was one. I remember the first summer after the "How can I help" tweet, and as summer approached, sort of some were saying, "Oh, everyone's going to go home." No one went home, right? And so I think that was certainly a moment when it felt like this is really for real. But I think it kept going, and it keeps going right now. I mean, we have a whole new city to get to know, and we experience that every day. I experienced it this past weekend, right? And so I think it's an ongoing thing. I think that, Miami's superpower, to me, one of Miami's many superpowers, is a welcoming spirit and an open mind, right? Miami is a place where you can go there and be as you are, right? And I think that's something that people so appreciated when they got here, because Miami's also a place where the narrative of the place can be sticky. People, particularly when you're not here, can have an idea of what Miami is that is completely outdated. And when people got here, they found something else. But in particular, they found a place that welcomed you, that's thrilled that you're here, and has an open mind about you can be and do as you wish. And that's what Miami has been over and over again. And that's what's sort of allowed for this moment to happen. That's continuing to happen literally every day. I mean, this morning, my wife, Danette, she was running out for a breakfast with someone who recently moved here with a financial company. And so this is ongoing. We're all experiencing this, making sense of it, getting our arms around it in real time. And that's what makes it so much fun.
I want to go back to, I think, the moment without a doubt. And I want to analogize the moment of the "How can I help" tweet to a very famous speech that President John F. Kennedy gave in 1961 at Rice University, where he basically framed a vision for America to land a human on the moon. And as part of that speech, he talked about this idea that in order to get there, we have to essentially create technologies, even metallurgies, so the science of metals that did not yet even exist, to be able to land that moonshot within 8 years. And I think that for a lot of our friends who are coming from cities all over America that are working on this problem set, cities, by the way, are the most important invention in human civilization. So if you think about that, right, the ability to, the tapestry of social fabric, infrastructure, human potential. And so for us, I believe that tweet in December 4th, 2020, paralleled that vision of when President Kennedy essentially launched the global moon race. And then for those of us, how many of you have seen the movie Apollo 13? Remember the movie Apollo 13? Do you remember Ed Harris in that white jacket? Do you guys remember who that was? That was the head of mission control at NASA, Gene Kranz. I think being able to have that moral clarity, that sense of vision of what's impossible on the other side, and then encapsulating it into essentially something that every single one of us is working around, which is that Miami, we are endeavoring in a bold way, which is really the terminology that Mayor Suarez uses, such a clear synthesis to be the capital of capital, not merely winning financial capital, but human capital, which is about the talent we're talking about, social capital, that network of relationships that drives forward communities, and then finally cultural capital, what's happening in our neighborhoods matter, right? The arts matter, music matters, reggaeton matters, a little shout out to Karol G, Bad Bunny. But I think that at the end of the day, that moment, that punctuating moment, I think is about every single epoch in time is about a clarity of vision and purpose that then becomes the galvanizing rallying call for all of us to say, we believe in that, we're checked into that. It sort of speaks to an alignment of our values and visions. And I think that that's really what that punctuation moment of that December 4th, 2020 tweet, which I think channels the spirit of a service-led movement. And really, as we like to say, it's really a nosotros moment. It's something that all of us are a part of. So for me, that's the way I look at sort of the centrality of that against the backdrop of everything that happened and is happening.
Anything to add?
Yeah, just real quick. I want to lean into the people comment that Matt said a little bit earlier. Every single week, I talk to someone who says, I have come to Miami and I have not booked a return flight. Every single week. And it shows that when you come down here, you may not know exactly what you're expecting or exactly what you're going to get, but when you get it and you feel it, you don't want it to go away. You don't want to leave. And I have been astounded by how many people have really bought into what we are trying to give everyone in this Miami community, and that they not only realize that they can consume that thing, but they can provide and give as well. And that's the biggest part, being able to be a part of the community and know that I actually have a place where I can give to this community as well. I have something to add. I am a value add as soon as I get into Miami and start to operate within Miami's ecosystem. I had conversations with colleagues. Erick, if I come to Miami, what can I expect? I'm like, well, you're not going to expect to come here and just get things. You need to put in some work. But I will tell you, if you're genuine and you're serious and you are consistent and you keep talking to people, a couple months will go by and you will find where you need to be. And I don't want to say that in a vague way. Come and talk to me. I will tell you where you need to be. I will make sure that you find the tribe and the people that you need to talk to. Because Miami is a big place, but it's really small. All of these people that I've met up on stage, they have been a part of my journey as I've developed and grown in Miami as an individual and as a young professional. And I'm so happy that I was able to do that. And it's not just me. Every single person in this room can do the same thing. So as much as I want to say Miami's this magical place, like it is, but it's not. It's just really you putting yourself out in this ecosystem and showing that you want to be a part of it and you want to add value and let the ecosystem add value to you back.
All right.
Can we shout out Mike Sarasti as well? Because Mike
Mike
Sarasti,
is
the former
man.
CIO of the city of Miami, really embodies that. And I know he's moderated like a ton of panels because he's literally a rock star. But to Erick's point, I think all of us would like do the Wayne's World We're Not Worthy with Mike Sarasti, and he would appreciate that.
Seriously.
Who was like sinking deeper in his chair. Exactly.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike,
All right.
remember when we were going off to Code for America conferences, imagining what could be? Yeah. Here we are.
Here we are. All right, so wrapping up our time, very quick round robin. Two-part question. First, if you were a betting man, what would you bet on next in Miami? And two, what keeps you up at night as a risk or a liability that we're working on? Gianni, we'll start with you.
What I'm betting on is that our universities are going to, there's always been that thing that Miami doesn't have the university that's putting out the type of talent that we need, but I think it doesn't matter anymore. FIU and Miami-Dade and Florida Memorial and everybody's stepping up, and I think they see the opportunity, and every single one is like enabling that. Like they're all hackathons and meetups and participating, especially in the blockchain world, accepting all these companies that want to participate. I think that's where like the vision of the future is. Liability, for me, I love the city of Miami and our mayor, but I think we also have to think about like Homestead and Hialeah and all these other areas and make sure that they can like spread out and that they're also participating in this excitement. So that's my 2 points.
I'm betting on collaboration. I really think that the more that we drill deeper and deeper into what collaboration actually looks like, I heard the word silo a lot. I heard it a lot in my career of like, there's these silos that exist in Miami. Well, they're getting broken down on a day-to-day basis. I see it all the time, and I'm really excited for what Miami is becoming because we keep putting ourselves out there to collaborate with one another. We have a long way to go in that respect, but we're doing a really great job. If there is a liability, I think we need to consistently think about what Miami looks like a decade out. Have a longer time horizon when we're thinking about things. I think we're doing a good job. Like 2 years from now, we know we're going to be in a really good place. We're rocking. We're doing great. Everything's really good. But when it comes into 10 years out, 20 years out, we need to start all having a collective conversation about what that looks like. And I got to give props to Mike and to Saif because they consistently do that. They're like, what is Miami of 50 years from now? Because if you don't do that, we're not able to have a good idea about what Miami is going to look like even 5 years from now. We have to have a longer-term plan. So I'm excited because the leaders on stage consistently do that, but it is something we all need to collectively do as a community more often.
So to get that long-term view, we recently launched Opportunity Miami, and Erick has promised to be writing an essay for Opportunity Miami about where we need to go next as we think about those next 5, 10,
I did
20
promise.
years.
I did promise, and I will commit to that promise, yes.
Thank you. So I guess, what to bet on? Number one, bet on the residents of Miami. I mean, and this is, we were talking about earlier, this is what we call the residents of Miami. That is a fluid thing and people. But again and again, it's the people of Miami who have shown a grit and a resilience and ability to figure things out, unlike any place that I've ever been. And I'll always, always, always make that bet on Miami. As it relates to concerns and challenges, we have in front of us this extraordinary opportunity, and that is to build a uniquely diverse, skilled workforce, uniquely diverse, skilled tech and startup community. And in doing that, building a community and really being the first to build a tech and startup community that is by, for all, the entire community. And doing that and actually making good on that promise is going to be hard, right? And it's going to require all of us to do that. The rewards will be great, but getting there won't be easy. And if there's one thing that keeps me up, is how do we actually get there and turn that corner?
So for me, it's quite simple. The single greatest opportunity on the next chapter for Miami are adult learners. How is it that we're thinking about our friends and our family that are out there that are left in legacy economy type roles? A lot of the good people who are here supporting each one of us at the convention center that are working in service economy roles, we know that the pandemic and automation and technology are decimating their ability to provide for their families. And we're in a community that has a very, very low matriculation rate as far as college attainment. So it means that the next massive horizon for us is going to be around hyper-concentration. A lot of people use these McKinsey-like future of work terms, which are like just basically describes like a glossy PowerPoint, but they don't break it down to our friends and family members that are working to clean cars at Miami International Airport, at Avis and Hertz Rental. Those jobs are going to be gone. So I think on one end, the opportunity lies in how are we collectively leaning in to upskill with meaning and creating careers of dignity and purpose for those folks. And the thing that keeps me up at night is if we don't fulfill that promise, we will fall short of our global potential as a city.
All right, well, thank you all, and thank you all for joining us. Please, round of applause for our great panelists.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
we hope to see you later at the happy hour.